This is a reading from the Notebooks by Maria Valtorta, 1943, November the 29th. The reference is Daniel chapter 9, verses 20 to 27. Jesus says, "From the beginning of prayer, the Lord's grace always descends upon you. I am speaking of holy prayer, not of the foolish request for useless things disapproved of either by God or upright morality. The Eternal, who watches over you from heaven, does not have a heart of bronze like the one you, that are harsh to your brothers and sisters and ungrateful towards God, have. He at once bends over you, when with a humble, loving, and trusting heart, and with sacrifice and constancy, you ask God for mercy. God gives you bread and comfort, knowledge and guidance when you turn to Him, and if you are not always satisfied, do not think you will be left with no answer to your prayer. In exchange for something denied by an intelligence which knows all, you receive other gifts which you do not always appreciate at once, and for which you are not immediately grateful. But sooner or later, you must recognize this intelligent goodness which looks after you, and if you do not know Him here, it will certainly be after earthly life that you recognize how great and good the Lord was to you." To Daniel, who was still praying, and you could say his prayer now as well, my angel spoke. The Consoler, who is also the announcer, is never separated from what concerns me. The messenger of God, an obedient, loving spirit, he always made it his joy to bear God's wishes to men, and console those suffering. He did not swiftly leave heaven only for the blessed announcement to console Joseph and to comfort my tremendous agony. He had already gone to the prophets to take the word and reveal the future regarding me as the Messiah. A spirit inflamed with love, he soars close to those desirous of God, and bears off the sighs of those loving God, and God's lights to those who love Him. One alone could remove dishonesty, sin, and injustice from the earth, which was deserving of a new flood, and which was submerged and cleansed only by divine innocent blood. It was I, God, made flesh for your sake. Corruption, sin, injustice, and war between man and God would come to an end when the Holy of Holies, the innocent one, slain out of love for men, was anointed, not with a royal anointing, but with a funeral anointing. Longed for by the patriarchs and the whole people of God, the Messiah had to arise to create the new, eternally undying Jerusalem, the Church that lives and shall live until the end of the ages, and that shall continue to live in her saints beyond the day of this earth. And it was granted to Daniel to know the number of the days which separated the living from the time of the Lord, and the consequences of the iniquity of a people responding to God's miracle with a condemnation. The condemnation of Christ marks the condemnation of the people. A crime always draws down a punishment, and since no crime is greater than to be pitiless towards the innocent and calumniate the blameless, what punishment could be reserved for those who had killed the innocent one, except the complete destruction of the place where the abomination had been established? Sacrifices are now useless when the bounds have been overstepped. God is forbearing, but He is not unjust, and to forgive obstinacy and sinning after having provided all the means to know error and emerge from it and go back to God would be injustice on God's part towards the just and those whom the wicked have tortured. The 72 weeks could now be centuries, O daughter, and at the end of them desolation could come upon the earth, and the abomination, in the place where everything should be holy. You are already headed towards it. Too much moldering of human science, like a dental cavity, gnaws at the hearts of my ministers, who are unable to belong to God, but belong to the world, and who absorb the spirit of the world, and give the world their breath, which is no longer heavenly. It is the great pain of Christ. Too many regions without churches, too many churches without priests, too many of the faithful without guidance, too many hearts without love. If Gabriel were to return, he would not find, except with great difficulty, hearts which would be capable of praying like Daniel, and which would receive his word without examining it minutely to the point of killing it, to study it, and come to deny it. And isn't this indeed an abomination in the house of God, in the place where at least its ministers, at least these, ought to be light for the throngs? You are killing Christ a second time. You kill Him in your spirits, and before long you will no longer be His people, but a tribe of idolaters. Do not complain then, if heaven is closed over your fermenting of abomination. In truth I tell you that if you do not convert to the Lord, your God, the desolation shall last until the end.